Hey guys, James with Torches and Tactical here. Before we get going on this light, I just want to say congrats to Bo Hart. He won our first giveaway, and he has a TS10 on the way to his house right now. Our next giveaway is coming soon, but if you like, share, and subscribe to this channel and our videos, it'll get us there even faster, and you have your chance to win the very next light. That being said, let's jump right in. This is the Lumintop FW1AA. This particular one comes with the Osram CSL MN1.TG, and I know that's a mouthful, but it does come with the Nichia 219C and the Luminous SST20 options as well. This is rated at 700 lumens, has a beam intensity of 27,000 candela, and is a 14500 or basically a double A size cell. It does have Anduril 2 with 7 steps as a default, with smooth and stepped ramping. Now this light was first announced in summer of 2021, and this is the culmination of Lumintop bringing the smooth reflector single emitter setup of the Lumintop FW1AA over to the 14500 factor of the Lumintop FWAA. Now that combination creates a tiny powerful thrower, and they wrapped it up with Anduril 2. So let's get in here and see if this lives up to everything that they want it to be. So let's start with the box that the FW1AA came in. Let's set that off to the side so we can grab the box. Now, this is pretty standard fare for Lumintop. A lot of their lights come in this pretty regular cardboard box. It does come with a sticker to let you know exactly what's inside and what awaits you. Now, one thing that I noticed is right out of the gate, if I can get them out, it does come with a pretty hefty set of instructions. FW1AA listed on the top. It is the user manual, has all the features, the warranty, and on top of that it does have a full breakdown of the user interface, which we'll go over here in a second. Now it does come with a little card to remind you to remove the head of the flashlight whenever you need to exchange or replace batteries. Comes with a spare set of O-rings. Does have a pretty standard fare lanyard. And you'll see that they want to make sure that the light gets to you in one piece. This is a very rigid foam, and the light was packed in here very tightly. All the accessories sitting up top, making sure it doesn't go anywhere for you, and it arrives in one piece. So let's get this out of the way and we'll move on. Now, as far as the flashlight in use, the FW1AA does come in a pretty standard Lumintop bowling pin design. Basically what that means is that the head and the tail are going to be the same size, and you're going to notice a slight taper in the body right here. Now, one nice thing about it is it does make using the flashlight in a cigar grip fashion very easy, and with a tail switch of this size, it's definitely my preferred grip. It's a little small to hold in the palm of your hand. And pre-installed on the FW1AA is a captured bidirectional clip. Basically what that means is it's pre-installed. You would have to take off the tail cap, which is glued in place, in order to replace this or remove it. But I can't think of any reason why you actually would have to remove it. The dual direction design allows you to clip it onto a baseball cap if you need to be hands-free. But while it's not a deep carry, it is a pretty small light, so most of it stays in your pocket and it's not obtrusive. Now, to give you a little bit of a close-up, the head and the tail do both have matching crosshatch knurling, but really it's just for a grip on the tail, as you're only going to be unscrewing the cap to take the battery out. Here, the tail with the famous Lumintop logo has an E-switch in it, and they do sit flat, allowing it to table stand because the button is recessed. Now, being as small as it is, the Lumintop FW1AA does make a fantastic pocket light, However, one thing you have to keep in mind is that since it does have just that single 14500 cell, it doesn't have the largest capacity. Now this one is produced in aluminum with kind of a blue-grayish color in a moderately satin finish, but knowing Lumintop, they will probably have a brass model, probably titanium, and other colors as well in aluminum. Now the threads on the body are not anodized, so you would not be able to do a mechanical lockout, since it does use an inner sleeve design to carry the signal all the way from the tail to the head. Now the threads might be a little rougher than other lights because it doesn't have the anodization. And the Lumintop FW series has had historical problems with the switch and the tail cap just coming apart in general. So it's always been their rule of thumb since then to keep the tail cap together and just remove the head to swap the battery out. Now if for whatever reason you do receive a unit that does have any of those issues with the tail cap, or the LED doesn't work, anything like that, if there's a manufacturing defect, as stated in the user manual, it does have a 5-year warranty from the date of purchase. And as I said, this unit does come with the Osram NM1 emitter. It is at 6500K temperature rating, and that will allow it to throw the furthest, especially paired with its smooth reflector that's used. And if the NM1 isn't your style, the bezel does screw off independently from the head, making emitter swaps relatively easy. Now if you do want a lot of throw, a smooth reflector is the way to go, even if sometimes they do have a tendency to reveal even slight misalignments. Now this particular one, I didn't see any artifacts in the hotspot, I didn't see any issues, but just given the general nature, it's not entirely uncommon. So about that beam profile, one thing to note, you can kind of see it on my hand, the hotspot on this is very, very tiny. There is a little bit of usable spill, but obviously that's not going to go as far as where the light is focused generally. So make sure that a thrower, especially a small pocket thrower, is something that you're looking for if the FW1AA is going to be in your wheelhouse. Now one thing you won't see here but is visible with slow shutter speeds on cameras and using the fan method or even camera phones is there is PWM, or pulse width modulation. Basically what that's going to do is it's going to cut the amount of time that power is going to the emitter in order to dim it instead of just lowering the current. So getting into the size of the FW1AA, this is 77.1 millimeters or 3.03 inches long. The head diameter is 20.4 millimeters or 0.80 inches long, and the body diameter is 18.2 millimeters or 0.071 inches. As far as weight goes, without the battery, this comes in at 13 grams or 1.1 ounces, and with a 14500 cell installed, this did come in at 53 grams or 1.9 ounces. I did bring in a Workhorse TS10 so we could do a size comparison, and matching the bottoms, you'll see that the top of the TS10 does come in right around the middle of the bezel on the top of the light. And that makes perfect sense considering that the TS10 does have TIR optics, while the FW1AA does have a smooth reflector. Now as far as the driver goes, it does have the same 1+ FET that the FWAA carries, meaning it has the 7135 chip to power all the low modes, as well as the FET chip to power all the higher modes. It does use Android 2, and mine was shipped with simple mode engaged from the beginning. Now one thing to note is that the simple UI does lack, or it's missing some of the familiar features that are in the more advanced mode, which means that you won't have a lot of the specialty blinky modes, you won't have temperature check, you won't have thermal configuration or anything like that light. And you will still have your lockouts, momentary high, battery check, and some other useful locks and unlock modes. The advanced UI, obviously it is a little more advanced than the simple UI, but it does have a lot more options and configurations available. Now we are in the midst of making an Anduril 2 user interface video showing you how to configure and set up all of the different options that Anduril 2 allows. But for now, just know that this will still allow access to your lockouts and allow you to tweak things like your voltage sensor calibration so you can do your battery checks and know that they're accurate. It will let you do auxiliary LED settings, although this does not come with any auxiliary LEDs, and it will configure the auto lock. And it does have a memory mode, so it will engage the last setting it was on. Now, one thing to note is that the FW1AA that I have did not come with a battery, so for my testing, what I had available in a 14500 configuration is a Workhorse branded 900 mAh 14500 cell. One thing that they do recommend is that you have a maximum of 51 millimeters for your battery, so no using protected cells that might go over that 51 millimeters, as that could cause the springs to compress and start to bend over time. And if you decide to get this light, make sure that you do buy a separate charger if you don't already have one, because there is no onboard charging present. Alright, now let's get down to the serious matter. We have the performance tests, and just before we get into that, this is rated at half a lumen in moonlight mode, 5 lumens in low, 500 in high, and finally 700 lumens out of a single 14500 in turbo. So one nice thing about it though is during my tests they were a little more fruitful than what Lumintop was suggesting I would get. As far as turbo mode goes, I did end up with 794 lumens, and that was at immediate turn on. At the 30-second mark though, it was at 491. So it dropped quite a bit, but you have to expect that with such a small light. There's no thermal mass to help get rid of all that heat created by the amount of power that this was putting out. And as far as the battery life is concerned, in moonlight you are able to run for 489 hours, in low 185 hours, in high you'll get 5 minutes of your sustained high output, and then an extra hour and 8 minutes of runtime, and in turbo you'll get 2 minutes of sustained output, and you'll get an extra hour and a half of runtime following that. Now one thing to note is with Anduril it will continue stepping down the light output until you finally hit that low voltage cutoff of 2.96 volts. So it did spec at 1 hour 32 minutes for turbo mode. However, I got significantly longer than that, but for most of it, unfortunately, it wasn't usable light output. And up from the 1 hour 32 minutes that I was supposed to get, I did get 2 hours and 4 minutes of runtime before the low voltage protection kicked in. So now that I've shown you a little bit about the FW1AA, let's get outside. I'll show you some night beam shots of this light, as well as comparing it to the Workhorse TS10. We'll be in after that, and I'll give you guys my final rundown. Alright guys, I'm outside now with the FW1AA from Lumintop, as well as the Workhorse TS10, just to give you a side-by-side comparison. I'm going to start at moonlight and go all the way up to turbo, just so you can see all of the settings. Here is moonlight. Probably can't see much right now. Starting to shine through. Now again, the FW1AA definitely is a thrower, so if this is something you're interested in, make sure that you definitely do want a thrower. Again, there is some spill, but that's not the... Okay, this here is turbo mode on the FW1AA. So spill is not its intended purpose. To compare, we have the Workhorse TS10. Okay, this is turbo on the Workhorse TS10. So now I'll do back and forth. Here's turbo on the Lumintop FW1AA. Very defined hotspot, and flood on the TS10. Definitely more of a flutter. Alright, let's get back inside and we'll wrap this up for you. So that's it from me and the rest of the crew here at Torches and Tactical. You guys be safe, and we'll see you in the next one.